Good morning, everybody. We're just giving everybody a minute to join. I see some familiar faces. Hi, everyone. Okay, it's 10:01, so I think I'm going to start. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Hour September edition. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Agnieszka Carpenter, and I'm the Executive Director for BioME. BioME is Bioscience Association of Maine, and we're the trade industry group for life science community in Maine. Before I jump into explaining the project and the exciting announcements for today, I just wanted to give you a couple of housekeeping items. Everybody is on mute upon entry, and we ask that you stay on mute at least until the very end when we have time for some Q&A. The chat function is on, and we encourage you to leave comments or questions in the chat, just as long as everybody's kind and respectful. We'll have some Q&A session about 10-15 minutes at the end. During that time, we will address some of the questions that we see in the chat box, but also if you'd like to ask a question in person, we ask that you raise your virtual hand, and to do that, you need to click on participants, find your name, and then find the function to raise your hand. I'm going to be doing some of the talking at the beginning. We will show you a very exciting video, and then we'll move on to hear from our great speakers today. So today is a very special coffee hour because we get to share an exciting project with you, something that we've been working on for many months. And this project is called Why Maine? And the idea behind this project was to create a page on our website and to produce a video that questions the answer, that answers the question, why is Maine a great place for life sciences? And as easy as it sounds, it took some time to figure out the exact reasons. We knew it is great. We just needed to put it all on paper and then to create some messaging. To give you some background and explain why we decided to do this, we often get contacted by people from out of state who say, how do I start a company in Maine? What do you have for life sciences in the state of Maine? And also, whenever I go out of state and talk to people about Maine and about BioME, they usually say, oh yeah, Maine, I've been to Maine. Maine is amazing. There's lobster, and I used to go for a summer camp there, but I didn't know there are any life science companies there. And so we decided that it's about time to tell our story and to actually show that there's a lot going on in Maine. And we felt that in order to attract talent and new companies to the state, we needed to capitalize on the success stories that are here and to come up with a marketing strategy for the life sciences brand, the Life Sciences in Maine brand. And that's exactly what we did. We partnered with Focus Maine, and we have Toby from Focus Maine here as one of the speakers today. And we hired a fabulous advertising and strategy company called Words from the Woods, who happen to be our next door neighbor. They're actually behind that brick wall right behind me. And we conducted many, many interviews with some of the bioscience community key players. Some of you are here today. And then we sat down and boiled down all the information that we already knew and all that we learned from you. And we came up with some messaging. And basically the message that we're trying to convey in this campaign is that Maine is the most enriching community to live and work for the innovative minds advancing life sciences forward. And once we had all of it on paper, we moved on to producing a page on our website that's just designed to be like a one-stop shop for anybody who's looking for information about Maine, about living here, about running a business, and especially for bioscience professionals. And we also thought that the best way to convey our message in the world of TikTok and social media would be to produce a short video. So when you watch this video, which I will screen shortly, please think of it as a commercial for the life sciences brand in Maine. Now, it was very important for us that the story of Maine Life Sciences is told by the members of our community, that it feels authentic, that nothing is particularly scripted. And so we were very lucky to have Dr. Deborah Bronk from Bigelow, John Conson from Propella, and Brian Harris from MedRhythms. And Brian was a speaker at our August coffee hour, but we have Dr. Bronk and John Conson today with us. And I would like to thank them for letting us into your lives and to devoting a lot of your time to produce this 2-minute video. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to show you the Life Sciences in Maine video. And under normal circumstances, we would do it in a large room. We would play it on a large screen with wine and hors d'oeuvres, but in current times, all we have is Zoom, maybe a cup of coffee, and we're going to rely on our Wi-Fi and on your Wi-Fi. So I'd like to ask everybody right now to turn off your camera, just to make sure we have the best viewing experience. We will turn it back on later. And also, if it's not working for you for some reason, because it depends really on your connection, we're going to put our website, our BioME website in the chat right now. If it's not displaying correctly, I encourage you just to go directly to our website and see it there. But I will do my best. We did a lot of testing for this and hopefully it'll work. So I'm going to share my screen, make sure your volume is up. And here we go.
Maine does attract a certain kind of person. It attracts rebels. If you haven't experienced it, you can think it's just a bunch of forests. And it's not even close to it.
You know, we have multiple billion-dollar companies that are based in Portland, Maine. That people don't hear that story, and they don't hear about the success of entrepreneurs here.
I moved my startup here to be close to manufacturing, and there was an available workforce here that was hardworking and excited to be involved in the life science industry.
Being in Maine, we are just an hour and a half away from downtown Boston. And so I think we've sort of had the best of both worlds.
I didn't know there were places like this in this country that I could just focus on research. It's just a lovely place to live. I feel more at home here than I think I did in 17 years in Virginia.
We're still 10 minutes to the boat, 10 minutes to downtown Portland. You can't live in an environment like this in Boston.
I love this lab. The natural beauty feeds your soul.
Speaking CEO to a CEO, Portland reminds me of Seattle in the 90s. Maine is going to be a thriving part of our life science ecosystem.
Biotechnology has the potential to transform the planet. But great science is like great art. You need to be creative to do it and do it well. And that ethos is here.
Okay, now we ask that you turn your camera back on. And if you like to give us a wave. Oh, thank you, Deborah. Yes, I was very nervous about screening it and the quality. I hope it displayed correctly for everybody. We are amazed at the quality and the stories that we heard in it. As I said, nothing is scripted. And so this video is living on the new page on our website. And I will also show you the website just briefly so that you know where to go for it. Or if you'd like to share it with someone else, that's where to find it. The website literally went live, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. So I'm going to do another share right now. Okay. So on our website, biomane.org, It can be found right here where it says Why Maine. And then the first thing we're displaying is the video. So this is exactly the video you just watched. And then we put our message right here for the innovative minds advancing life sciences forward. Maine is the most enriching community to live and work. Then on the right side, we have our bioscience map of Maine. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to go and take a look. It is animated and it really goes well with the brand of life sciences in Maine. And then we list the reasons to believe why Maine is an amazing place to conduct business, especially for bioscience. I'm not going to go into detail here, but I encourage you to explore it. Then we have resources for startups, companies, and employees. There are a lot of resources listed. If you're seeing something that should be improved or updated, just let us know. This is work in progress all the time. And then we're also displaying and highlighting some news in Maine just to show the general public, and especially people from out of state, that there's really a lot going on here and that Maine is not just a bunch of woods. And Deborah, thank you so much for saying that, because that's the myth we're trying to debunk here. Okay, so with that, I think we're going to go to our first speaker, Dr. Deborah Bronk from Bigelow Laboratory. And Deborah has some slides and we'll talk about this project, but also what's new with Bigelow. Thank you so much.
Hi, so thank you, Agnieszka. That was a great video. It was a new experience for me to do a video. So that was about 6 hours of film that went into that. John's laughing. So, right. The number of times I walked in and out of my house was pretty funny while they're taping me. So, well, it's a pleasure to be here. I am Deborah Bronk. I'm the president and CEO of Bigelow Laboratory. Our new tagline is "Every drop of the ocean teems with life and opportunity." So Bigelow has been around since 1974. I came a very circuitous path to get here. One of the things Agnieszka had asked for me to talk about is kind of the path that I took. So I am a first generation college student. I am originally from Wisconsin, which is, I think, why Maine feels so comfortable to me, because Maine looks like northern Wisconsin, where I spent much of my time and every summer as a kid. But I pretty much grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I knew I wanted to be an oceanographer as a young kid from watching Jacques Cousteau, who ironically is not an oceanographer, but was really inspired about the ocean. I didn't even see the ocean until I was 13. So I'm very envious of the kids that grow up in Maine and are surrounded by just this incredible natural beauty and the ocean if they live along the coast. I added it up, 33 years I spent as a practicing oceanographer. These are stars everywhere that I've done research, and in many of these stars, I went back again and again and again and again. My own research is all about the element nitrogen, which is needed by all living organisms, and how it can control the growth of phytoplankton at the base of the ocean food web. I also work in wastewater treatment plants, which is in many ways like a mini ocean with lots of microbes that are processing nitrogen. The last decade, a lot of my work was done in the poles. So this is shots of two of my lab groups. I'm in the middle. I'm the fierce one in the middle. We call ourselves the nitrogen snow ninjas when we work in the poles. And that the work in the poles is largely because they are changing so rapidly, and understanding the processes within the ocean in these regions is really critical to understanding and being able to forecast what's going to happen with our climate moving forward. So, but this is not why they hired me, I think, at Bigelow. One of the big experiences that I had was at the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation is the federal agency that is charged with funding basic research across all science and engineering disciplines. And it's really just the gem that has powered science innovation and technology innovation in the United States for the last many decades. One of the great things about NSF is that half of their science staff were people like me. I was a professor at a university, I ran my own research program, and I took a leave of absence to go up and serve at the National Science Foundation, where I was director for the Division of Ocean Sciences. Now, as the director of that division, I managed a budget of $356 million, which is a huge amount of money. And so you really think about it, for a country this size, it's about $1 a person, right? So that's a fraction of what you pay for a cup of coffee. So I think we are underinvesting in understanding and studying the ocean. But because of that lack of investment, I got very, very interested in where are the efficiencies we can gain in the research process? How can we make the dollars we have go farther? And really, what's the next generation of ocean science lab? What does that look like? So after I left, I got invited to Bigelow by some of the scientists to present some of my research on the Arctic. And this is a picture of our beautiful Platinum LEED certified building that opened in 2012. When I got up there, it was like I was walking into the brainstorming sessions that I had participated in at NSF about the next generation of lab. And Bigelow is really unique for a number of reasons, particularly within the landscape of ocean labs. But I think one of the things noticing in the pandemic for a lot of labs, so we don't have any departments. So we are about 100 people, more in the summer, sometimes fewer in the winter. We have chemists sitting next to mathematicians, sitting next to people that study disease. And that's really important for the cross-fertilization of ideas. Because we don't have any of these disciplinary boundaries, we can pull techniques and ideas from a lot of different places. And this is pretty unique compared to a lot of universities. We have shared facilities. So each scientist doesn't have to have all of the instruments they need to do their work. They can use our shared facilities, which makes us very, very efficient, both in terms of instrumentation and space. I think this is a very Maine thing, right? You want to be, if you're living in the woods, way back when, you had to rely on other people, share, take care of each other, and efficiency was really important. So I think we embody that kind of Maine ethos. Though we are all basic researchers at heart, and fundamentally that this is a basic research institution, the ethos is always we want to use what we've learned to solve problems. And I think that's one of the big things that attracted me to Bigelow. We don't have any tenure, so we're very different than a university. The good thing about that is our scientists have to bring it day in and day out. They can't rely on past successes. And that keeps, I think, a very vibrant scientific workforce. The scientists are largely self-supported. We provide 2 months of salary per year. The rest they bring in contracts and grants. And again, that keeps them kind of at the cutting edge because they have to be to stay competitive. What they get for that, though, is freedom. They get freedom to pursue pretty much any line of research they want, and they don't have a lot of the drags on their time, or they don't have to spend a lot of their time doing the many things that I used to have to do as a college professor. They really focus on research. And so that really attracts them to Bigelow. We are in the process of searching for new senior research scientists right now, and all night long we've been getting, God, I think we're up to 90 applicants, which is really good, except I'm on the committee, so all of those will have to get reviewed. So I'm like, okay, you could stop now, but it just shows, you know, the draw of Maine and the draw of Bigelow. So kind of fundamentally, we study the foundation of global ocean health. That means we focus on the microbes, the little guys, the microscopic phytoplankton and bacteria and viruses that form the foundation of the ocean food web. We have kind of 3 basic areas of emphasis: ocean health and function. One example of that is we're launching a new water health in humans initiative. And this is, one example is studying harmful algal blooms. As a researcher, I spent 20 years studying the blooms, harmful algal blooms and fish kills in the Gulf of Mexico and in Chesapeake Bay. And I am part of a group of people that are saying this is not going to happen in the state of Maine. So that's exciting work, and I think really important work for the state at this time. Another area of focus is our changing planet. So we just had a researcher, Steve Archer, who just got back. He's on the far left of this picture. He spent, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 months locked into the ice as part of Mosaic, an international program that is designed to really take a broad view of what's going on in the Arctic and how it's changing. And again, that's really critical if the science community is going to be able to accurately forecast climate change. And the last is the ocean's potential. And we study this in a number of ways. One, these beakers are part of the National Center for Marine Algae and Microbiota. We have over 3,000 cultures of viruses, bacteria, phytoplankton that we maintain. And when I was a graduate student, I bought my cultures from Bigelow, and we send these cultures out to industry and researchers around the world. We also have the Single Cell Genomics Center, which is, we study individual cells in the ocean at a time to interrogate and learn about their potential from the standpoint of understanding their role in the ecosystem to potential uses for something like biopharma. And we also then use those discoveries to try to improve the future for all life on the planet. And the translation of that basic research to more applied questions back to basic research is, again, I think, a real strength of what we do. One example of that is right now the lobster industry has been pretty hard hit. The environment is changing, and what that means for the future of the lobster fishery is a big open question. One way to help lobster fishermen is to help them diversify their funding stream. They don't have funding streams. Their sources of income. One way to do that is through something like kelp farming, which improves the environment, is a source of revenue, and can be done in the off season. So we've got a Center for Seafood Solutions that works with the fisher community and the aquaculture industry to try to solve the problems that they may be facing in launching this new industry. So that's kind of a snapshot of Bigelow. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. And Agnieszka, I think the video turned out really lovely, and I'm really grateful that I was a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I can't stress how lucky we are to have had you. And also, we're always amazed at the work that's done at Bigelow. And I think that displaying Bigelow and highlighting it in the video was a really good idea, because it also showed the natural beauty that we were able to show without any cliches, because we're just showing the real setting of a research lab, right? So if anybody has any questions for Dr. Bronk, please put them in chat or ask them later. And now we're going to move to John Conson. John, it's your turn. John from Propella. John, you need to unmute.
Better? Thanks, Agnieszka. Hey, everybody. John Conson. I'm co-founder and CEO of Propella, and joining me today is Amanda Shea.
Good morning.
So we're really delighted to tell you a little bit about the company and why we moved here in Maine. And it was, by the way, an incredible honor to participate in the video with Deborah and with the entire community that helped pull it together. So it was just an exciting time for us, and it's great to see it finally released to the public. We're glad to be a part of that. So I am probably the Benjamin Button of startups. By that I mean, I've spent 40 years in the life sciences industry. 32 years of that was working at the large life science companies, many of which are in the Boston area. And I climbed the ladder from a marketing analyst at 3M right out of graduate school to eventually becoming an executive VP, a senior VP, and then finally CEO of a mid-sized company in life sciences. And that was the first 32 years. Then I entered a new stage in my career. Those 5 years after the first 32 years working for big companies, learning how to become a CEO, learning how to run an organization. And it was just a thrill of a lifetime to run a company on the West Coast. But I was drawn back to the Boston area, New England, because this is where home was. So we moved back. And as we moved back, I experienced a big change in my life. My stepson actually became addicted to opioids while in college. And on the morning of November 4th, 2016, we found him blue, unresponsive, laying in his bathroom floor. I was fortunate enough, along with my wife, to be prepared for the event, and we revived him. And by the way, he's doing great now. But that was November 4th, 2016. About a month later, while I was doing some work for Harvard University, they introduced me to a technology called stochastic vibrotactile stimulation. And they presented to me results that showed it helped a condition that infants who are exposed to opioids in utero experience, a condition called neonatal abstinence syndrome. I was so impressed with the technology and so impressed what it did for infants that became exposed to opioids that I decided to quit what I was doing and do really my first startup, hence the Benjamin Button link to my life. And that company is Propeller. We've been at it since 2017. So with that, I'll tell you a little bit more. And excuse me, there we go. So we are focused on this condition that I briefly described. It's called neonatal abstinence syndrome, or neonatal opioid withdrawal symptom. And it's what newborns experience a couple days after birth once they've been exposed in utero to opioids. It's a terrible, frightening condition. These infants are hyper-irritable. They have rapid heart rates, rapid breathing rates, and essentially they are inconsolable. They just do not calm down. Incessant crying. You'll talk to mothers and hospital staff that care for these infants for up to 2 weeks, and many times, days on end, these infants do not stop crying. So that's the condition that we're focused on, neonatal opioid withdrawal syndrome. Crazily, there is no standard of treatment in this country or anywhere else in the world for how to take care of these babies. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that they first are treated with what they call non-pharmacological treatments, which are human-based treatments, things that we do every day with babies: swaddling, skin-to-skin contact, breastfeeding, rocking, just to try and calm them down. And when that doesn't work, the AAP recommends moving on to a pharmacological regimen. And these infants are treated with morphine to help that relax them. They're usually in the hospital for about 2 weeks as opposed to about 3 days for a normal healthy baby. And the cost to take care of these infants for those 14 days is about $22,000 per infant. So a huge hit. And by the way, about 80% of these newborns are covered under Medicaid, which is managed federally, but also on a state-by-state basis. And this increase of infants that have been born over the last several years exposed to opioids is really draining Medicaid budgets on a state-by-state basis. So there's an urgent need to come up with solutions to help improve treatment of these infants, improve outcomes, reduce their length of stay, and that's what we're working on, a non-pharmacological solution to help infants with the diagnosed condition of neonatal opioid withdrawal syndrome. And here is our solution that we've been working on. This is the Propeller SVS hospital bassinet pad. It doesn't look like much. It is a pad that sits into a standard hospital bassinet. And as you can see, a cord comes out of it and there's a controller to turn on the pad and off. Well, what does the pad do? It produces a vibration, but not just any vibration. It is the world's first patented, gentle, and random vibration. Scientists call it a stochastic vibration, stochastic meaning random. And you may think, well, really, how unique can a vibration be? Well, this one's very unique. In fact, at the end of last year, the FDA designated this product with this vibration as a breakthrough device for treatment of infants with neonatal abstinence syndrome, or NAOS, that are pharmacologically managed. So this is what we're working on.
So at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, this great technology, what does it feel like? So it's actually equivalent to putting a baby in a car seat on a smooth surface going about 40 miles per hour. So the suspension in the car creates that gentleness, and then the bumps on the road create that little random feeling of the vibration. So any new parents or people who have had kids in the past, putting your kid in the car at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, this is a solution for that. And then so the patented product has been exclusively licensed from Harvard, UMass Medical Center, and MGH. These 3 centers have worked in collaboration for over 10 years, and the product has cost a little over $3 million to produce. And then so when John took over the company and licensed the product, we licensed it exclusively from these organizations. And we are excited about elevating and bringing this product to the next level and helping a lot of babies. So as you can see, a few people kind of like what we're doing. So we've won $1.8 million in equity-free money. So some of the awards have come from the NIH, Ohio, Charles Hood Foundation, Johnson & Johnson, and many more.
We like free money. And I'm sure many of you do as well.
Who doesn't like
right?
free money?
So we've just been so fortunate, especially over the last year and a half, to enter competitions to win much of this money. And of course, with the NIH and the National Institute of Drug Abuse, it was our first SBIR grant. So those of you who are working on startups in the life science field, if you're not familiar with the SBIR program offered by the NIH, you need to do that because it's a great source of not only funds, but also help in developing your company and becoming a commercial success. So we're going to talk now a little bit about why we're here in Maine, why Propella's in Maine, and why personally we're in Maine.
Yes, so I grew up in the greater Boston area and spent all of my youth and went to college in Boston. And about 2.5 years ago, my mom actually relocated to Southern Maine, and I found myself coming up a lot on the weekends. I've been going to Portland for over a decade with friends, and I just really loved what Maine had to offer. The people were amazing, the outside, being so close to nature, skiing, boating, kayaking, everything. So I decided to relocate, and so I'm now based in Biddeford, and it's been a great experience. And moving to Maine, you know, I did not sacrifice on my career at all, and if anything, it's helped propel my career forward. So yeah, I'm proud to call myself a Mainer now.
So my story in terms of moving to Maine really has a lot to do with this company called Saunders Electronics. Hopefully some of you are aware or have worked with Saunders. If you have, you understand it's a great company. They were named Maine's Manufacturer of the Year in 2018, and in 2019, the city of South Portland, where they're located, named them the Maine Business of the Year in South Portland. The company was started over 30 years ago by Dave Saunders, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about our connection with them. After winning some of these awards, we knew that we had to take, and I'll show it to you. We had to take this device, which was developed at Harvard, which controlled the vibration. It makes it random, it precisely controls its movements. And we knew that something this large, which by the way, the components cost over $5,000, was not going to fly in a product to be used every day in a hospital. We needed something that was more reliable and less costly to control the vibration in the pad. I spoke to 20 different electronic design firms in Massachusetts, in New Hampshire, and a few in Maine, and realized within 10 minutes of talking to Dave Saunders that I had found the partner. Dave looked at me and he said, "We're going to do it with you, John." And lo and behold, within 9 months, we took this with Dave's engineering support and help in his company and turned it into this. So that started in 2018. We found a great partner in Saunders. So after winning $1 million from Ohio at the end of 2019, I decided as a startup, we need to, like any startup, conserve money, be wise. So I started looking at more affordable places to locate the company. I looked at Western Massachusetts, I looked at Lowell, I looked at Lawrence, I looked at Southern New Hampshire, and of course I came up to Maine, and I started thinking, hey, it might be nice to be close to Saunders. Well, you know what? It didn't take long. I came into Biddeford. I found an incredibly affordable location in the peppermill mill. I became convinced that the talent was here to advance the company, to bring in people like Amanda to help us grow on the marketing and business development side, and also find some engineers, which is the next area where we're going to add, and couple that with the resources that we have at Saunders, as well as some other suppliers here that make some subcomponents for us in Maine and Massachusetts, and said, this is it, we're going to move the company up here. So we did that end of last year. And then of course, we made the personal decision too. If the company's moving up here, I need to as well. And that was kind of easy. My wife did an internship at Maine Med several years ago. Her brother started a business in downtown Portland over 10 years ago. And we felt really, really comfortable here. And on top of that, we found a beautiful home really close to Portland to take advantage of, you know, everything that the area has to offer. And I can clearly say without hesitation that in spite of this terrible pandemic that we've all been dealing with over the past several months, that I probably had one of the most enjoyable summers of my life. And that's because everything is just so accessible here compared to other areas of the country where I've lived. And by the way, that includes, I've lived in Pennsylvania, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia, Life Science Alley in the Minnesota area, Seattle, Washington, the Portland, Oregon area, and of course, Boston, and now here. It's just so accessible, as we all know, to so many different things, outdoor life as well as urban life. And I just can tell you, it's just been a delight to be here this past summer. With that, we've told you our story. We are Propeller, happy to answer questions about what we're doing next, which includes getting clearance from the FDA, hopefully within the coming months, so that we can start selling under marketing clearance to hospitals for our unique breakthrough device. And then eventually entering the consumer market in a big way to help healthy babies fall asleep faster and sleep better while they're at home. So thanks very much for this opportunity, and look forward to participating in future coffee chats from the association.
Thank you, John. As always, you're a star. If you could share your screen, thank you so much. I think John is a living story of life sciences in Maine, and we thought he would be the great fit for the video, and of course we were right. And so I mentioned before that this video, the whole campaign has been done in partnership with Focus Maine. Focus Maine kindly funded the whole project. But Focus Maine is also doing some great things on business attraction side. And so now we're going to give Toby Ahrens the stage. And Toby, whenever you're ready.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Agnieszka. And so Focus Maine funds were used to support the effort, but Agnieszka, you ran point on all of it and worked with a great consultant. So congratulations, it really came out well. And yeah, I really love these coffee hours. I'm learning an enormous amount just sharing the stage with both Deborah and John. A lot of overlap in our backgrounds that I didn't realize. And yeah, John, really inspirational story and incredible product. So impressive. So my name is Toby Ahrens. I'm program director for Focus Maine, and Agnieszka asked us to sort of give a little bit on our background as well as sort of our roles currently. And so maybe before I talk about Focus Maine, I have a few slides to share there. I'll just, yeah, a little bit about me. So I grew up in Maine and left after high school and master's in engineering and a PhD in biogeochemistry at Stanford. And actually that was all, the biogeochemistry was all around nitrogen, Deborah. I didn't realize we had that in common. And then spent about 10 years in the private sector on microbial biotechnology, including about 6 years with a company that had lab operations in Maine, and had always flirted with moving back, and the time was never quite right. And with that company had a lot of interactions with Bigelow. I think, you know, Deborah mentioned in one little bullet or one slide on the NCMA, the National Center for Marine Algae and Microbiota, but it truly is a world-class repository for microbes, focused primarily on saltwater. There's another in Texas primarily on freshwater, but those two repositories are really, just incredible resources for the country and the globe. And we also worked with Bigelow for analytical services and some other collaborative efforts. And, I think Deborah talked a lot about the incredible basic research that Bigelow does, also on public-private partnerships. They're very easy to work with, a very easy collaborator that understands how to work with industry. So I just want to make sure to put in that plug for Bigelow as well. We certainly had really great interactions with them in the past. And then similar to Deborah, after my time in private sector, I moved over to the funding side of the table and spent time in DC overseeing some funding programs. I was at the Department of Agriculture on bioproduct development. And so I oversaw a few different grant programs, including a portion of the SBIR program that John mentioned, the Small Business Innovative Research Program. So NIH has one, as do many other federal agencies, NSF, USDA, and others. And so if anyone has questions about those programs, feel free to reach out to me. I know that MTI also is very active in supporting applicants that are thinking about SBIR applications. And so there's a really great resource base here for folks that are thinking about that. Great for non-dilutive capital, as John was talking about. And then I joined, finally, timing was right to move back to Maine. My wife joined the USM faculty as a research epidemiologist, public health. And actually, John, her focus is on maternal child health, including some work with opioids. And so there's, yeah, very, very impressive to hear your story. So I'm going to move on to Focus Maine here quickly with just a few slides. So let me share my screen. Okay. All right, so can you see that fairly well? I'll move that over there. Perfect, so Focus Maine, just as quick background for those that don't know, is a 10-year initiative to grow jobs, good high quality jobs and revenue in Maine. In 3 target sectors: in agriculture, aquaculture, and the biosciences. And we also support a skills and talent thrust through the Focus Maine intern experience that Educate Maine oversees. And the initiative grew out of a slow recovery from the last recession, from 2008 recession. And in 2014-15, the global consulting firm McKinsey was hired to try to understand how Maine could prioritize resources for sectors where it had a unique competitive advantage. And that's how these 3 sectors were decided upon. And we do our work through mission aligned partners. So we're very closely with others on all of these thrusts. And during the COVID stress test that we're going through right now, I think the 3 sectors are still highly relevant, certainly on ag with the supply chain disruptions, on aquaculture that, you know, seafood sales have typically been reliant on something like 70% in the restaurant and food service industry. So certainly that industry has seen a big disruption. And then biotech for different reasons, which is, you know, obviously the focus of the talk today. You know, Agnieszka mentioned, you know, in the video, some of the reasons to move to Maine, but is also, you know, really good about talking about, you know, all of the strong Maine companies that have played a vital role in helping to, you know, fight COVID right now. And then in the broader sector, deal flow hasn't stopped, and we would love for that to continue in Maine. We are a private sector led initiative. Just talk a little bit about our leadership team. I'm not going to spend much time on the slide, but I did want to point out a few that are here. So Chuck Hewitt, for one, is a former COO at Jackson Labs and has been very involved in the Rue Institute's formation. We are co-chaired by Mike Dubiak, former CEO and chair of the board at WEX, and Andrea Maker, a partner at Pierce Atwood. And the private sector approach, you know, permeates everything that we do. And the leadership team, you know, lets us, you know, keeps us focused, doesn't let us forget our private sector roots. And then just quickly on our current efforts. So we have 4 major thrusts that we're working on right now, and these have been informed by a couple of formal studies as well as a lot of, you know, informal input that we've gotten over the years. So the formal input has come through a McKinsey report, that the original McKinsey report in 2015, and then another report that we hired a group called Facilities Logic to look at the feasibility of implementing sort of recruitment-based efforts to build the biopharma industry in Southern Maine. And so the four thrusts we have right now are number one, building a pipeline of companies interested in exploring Maine as a business location. So this is primarily targeting the greater Boston area. And we also are trying to be very careful about being targeted with these recruitment efforts. So we're not trying to recreate everything, the entire ecosystem that Cambridge has to offer. We're a 1.5 hour to 2 hour drive away, and we think that there are opportunities to carve off pieces of this that don't need to be in the heart of Cambridge. They don't need to be paying those prices. And by being located in Maine, they can actually increase their competitiveness through labor savings, lower turnover, training subsidies, things like that. So the pipeline of companies is a strong effort. Understanding the competition in terms of incentives is another effort that we have. And so we know that as a state, we're not only competing with New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut and other states neighboring Massachusetts, but also, you know, like John mentioned, the city of Lowell and Worcester and these other locations. And so really want to understand our competition. We're likely not going to have the biggest overall incentives, but we think that we can be nimble and targeted and really competitive in how we talk about recruiting sort of specific pieces of the sector. A third thrust is partnerships. And so working with groups like the Rue Institute has been great with, you know, certainly with BioME and the incredible things that Anishka has been able to do, and not only with the video and marketing materials, but really her as representing, you know, all of what Maine already has to offer that then we can build on through some of our attraction efforts. With groups like Maine and Company, Peter Del Greco leads the group, and attraction and relocating companies to Maine is what they do. And we're not trying to recreate that. And so working with partners like that is really helpful. So joining forces is a big, important piece of what we're doing. And then finally, marketing the sciences in Maine. And so I was on a call the other day with, you know, there was a company that was exploring interest in Maine and trying to, you know, get some other prices as they were expanding, and said, oh, geez, you know, Jackson Lab, I didn't realize they were located in Maine. That's neat. And, you know, didn't realize that, you know, I think sometimes we take for granted, you know, Bigelow and Jackson Labs, all these incredible resources that we have up here, incredible institutions, and we need to keep reminding people outside of the state on everything that we have here that they're building on. I just wanted to end with a slide on contact information. Feel free to reach out to me, and my email is up there, and just to point out a couple of other colleagues that may be on the call. So we're led by Kim Hamilton, the president of Focus Maine. So she has deep experience at the leadership positions at the Gates Foundation, at Feeding America, and took the helm a few years ago at Focus Maine. So really strong leadership, and feel free to reach out to her. And then Satish Tadekanda heads up our biosciences efforts. He's based in the Boston area, deeply involved in all the efforts that I talked about, and runs a CEO roundtable and very connected in Boston. So feel free to reach out to any of us. And then I guess finally, I just want to close with saying I think our biggest asset is probably everyone that's on the call today, and just making sure that we're all, you know, conversant advocates for the industry. And I really appreciate, Agnieszka, everything that you've done to bring everybody together. So thanks, and looking forward to Q&A.
Thanks so much, Toby. And we appreciate Focus Maine and you as well. So thank you for all your kind words. I think what you said about a targeted effort and a collaborative effort, this is really happening, and we're very excited that it's happening. And honestly, we've been thinking about doing a marketing strategy and sort of being the advocate, not just on the, you know, in the political sense with advocating for the industry at the state or at the federal level, but also being the advocate for the great things that are happening here. And so Focus Maine really pushed us to do this, not pushed us, you know, physically, but just we had many conversations about this, and we thought it was a great opportunity, so we took it. Okay, so now we have some time for Q&A. If anybody would like to ask a question, please raise your virtual hand right now. You need to click on participants, and then there should be a bar on the bottom that says raise hand. We have about 11 minutes, so not a lot of time, but we'll probably be able to squeeze in a question or two. And everybody is shy. So I'll ask the first question, and it's to any of our panelists today. And the question is, what will it take to bring Maine to the next level in terms of bioscience expanding and growing? What will it take? I mean, I think the marketing effort that we're taking on here is step one, because we just need to tell the story, but there are other things that could be done. And Toby mentioned some incentives and some other things, but what do you think is the biggest piece of the puzzle?
This is John. I'll jump in. I'll say that I think one piece of the puzzle is to improve collaboration between startups and or established companies that are doing new research and the clinical institutions within Maine, working closer with Maine Med and other facilities like Maine Med on clinical research is something that I think we can really step up and really promote more actively. And work. I think that's done very, very well in the 3 life science centers across the United States that are well established, which is, of course, Boston, Silicon Valley, and then the Life Science Alley. There's great collaboration between the clinical institutions and the startups and the mid-range companies, or even established companies that are doing research. So that would be one thing that comes right to mind.
Thank you.
I wonder if, one of the, it's been such a terrible pandemic, but it has really put places like Maine on the map, right? So I don't know about where you live, but around here, the number of sold signs on real estate, that some of it has been on the market for a very long time, is pretty shocking. So a lot of people are looking to places that aren't in urban centers. And with the virtual move, this works great, right? Could you imagine we'd be having as many of these virtual connections? So being in a rural area with all the benefits to the quality of life, you can still do, a great work. And so that, I think, is going to be a bit of a boon for Maine. And it's just exposing more people to what's up here. And that's going to be good, I think, for in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Toby, did you have a comment too?
Maybe just quickly, maybe 2 quick ones. Number one, I think in the video, John had mentioned, speaking CEO to CEO, I think that's really important. And, even when we're on these introductory calls, I'm amazed the number of times that, groups in Boston say, well, who can I talk to about what it's like to be up there? Can you give me a name of, 3 different companies that are similar, that are in my field, just to, get a feel for it. And I was surprised by that. I thought that, they're saying, okay, look at the balance sheet, help me make this argument to my board of directors. But there really is this personal connection that they want to make with like-minded CEOs. Last week you heard it, or sorry, last month, I guess, on this call on, there was a similar story that was being told. So I really appreciate that. And I think the next is, once somebody says, okay, yeah, you got me, I'm interested, I want to hear more. I think we really need to be very targeted so that we're not reaching out, so that we're not giving them sort of a laundry list of introductions to 10 different agencies at the state, that we can really do as much hand holding in the early stages to get the hooks in them as we can, and know that there's a nurturing environment here that they're walking into.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Okay,
Can I offer just one other new insight that I just, picking up on Deborah's idea, another insight relative to that, that I learned of this week is, this past year was the first time in perhaps decades that more people were moving out of California than were moving in. And the 4 areas that, states that they seem to be moving out of, are moving to, are Texas, Nevada, Arizona, and Idaho. Having lived on the West Coast, I can tell you that there's a lot of intrigue with the high-tech workers that can work remotely in Maine. And I think perhaps some messages from Maine to those high-tech workers that can, do their work virtually, there's a lot of appeal to Maine. So reaching out to them to consider, besides those 4 states, add Maine to their list would really be helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. And speaking of that, I think in Maine, once someone lands in Maine, they never want to leave. And actually, we put together some research, and one of the statistics we saw is that Maine is one of 4 states with the least desire to move away. And I think that tells you, and I think everybody who lives here knows it, because we have everything. Okay, I do see a question from James McManus. James, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. My question is directed at John, but Toby touched on this a little bit. One of the things that I'm I hear about quite a bit in the spaces that I go is the difficulty with which we have at attracting investment capital in Maine. And so there's no real answer to this, but I would welcome your thoughts on how do we change that narrative? And first, John, I would ask, do you think that's true? And then secondly, how do we change that narrative? How do we get investment capital to come to recognize Maine as a place to invest?
So thanks, James. And when you say investment capital, are you speaking specifically to seed investors, or are you speaking to, say, private equity or venture capital, or all the above?
All the above.
Yeah, so I would say, generally it's true. I would say that we're making great inroads here in the state as it relates to seed capital. I think Maine Angels and all the organizations, Focus Maine, the Maine Venture Fund, all of the organizations that are starting to, do a great job impacting outreach, are helping address the seed capital issue. I'm going to put another plug in for the NIH, right? When you're applying for a grant from the NIH, and I'm sure it's true for other government agencies, you identify the congressional district. The federal government wants to invest in Maine because they see opportunities here, and it's underutilized compared to other states where they've been historically making huge investments. So there's a bias to invest in startups in Maine. And if you're located in an area that's a economically deprived area, a hub zone, there's even additional incentive. And if you're a woman-owned led business, then there's even greater incentive for seed capital. So now moving on to venture capital and private equity, there's a bias to stay close to home with all those investors, whether it's New York, San Francisco, Boston, et cetera, and Minnesota. And I've just been intrigued. I don't have an answer yet. I've been intrigued with the fact that so many of the people that belong to or involved in private equity and venture capital vacation in Maine or have second homes here in Maine. And so how do we start getting them to invest in the state where they've enjoyed their summers? I don't know what the answer is. I'm intrigued with the connectivity though.
Yeah. Two quick additions on my side. Number one, I completely agree. And so actually for our outreach efforts in the Boston area, we've recently reinvigorated and engaged an advisory team specifically for our biosciences effort that came up, and we are reaching out to the venture capital community and starting that conversation there are some groups, and I have been told when I was in the private sector that, that's great that you're in Maine now with your labs, but when we invest in you, you're going to be in the Boston area. We want to be able to walk down the street and this is where you're going to be, like it or not. So, if that's the case for some of those VC organizations, open an office in Portland and we're starting those conversations. Second, I think there is a lot of money out there. It doesn't necessarily have to come from a shop that is based here, but we do need to make sure that we're convincing the venture capital firms that Maine is a place where you can commercialize, that it's not just a place where you can start a great idea and then when it gets big enough, then it moves down to Boston to get to the world. So I think making sure that message gets out that it is a place to commercialize as well as just to start an idea is an important one too.
Thank you so much, Toby, and thank you, John, and thank you to everybody who joined us today. I hope you enjoyed this meeting. Our next coffee hour will be in 1 month, around October the 15th. Please stay tuned for the exact date. We're just confirming our 4th speaker, and We're happy again to be highlighting the work done in Maine, including research, new companies, startups, entrepreneurs. That's the best we can do in the world of the pandemic where we can't do in-person events. And these coffee hours will continue through December at least, then we'll see after that. Also on September the 30th, we have an event devoted to our cost savings programs. So any member companies, if you belong to our organization, we'll be highlighting some of the discounts that your company can utilize. We have a lot of good vendors that we work with, including VWR, UPS, Clean Harbors, and Brex, which is a credit card. So I encourage you to look into it, maybe forward it to your purchasing manager or anybody who makes financial decisions at your company. With that, once again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, any follow-up questions, please reach out after this event, or if you have any feedback. Other than that, I just wanted to wish everybody a wonderful day. It's beautiful weather, and we're still just soaking up the rest of the summer just for a couple more days. So enjoy your day. Thanks again, and take care. Bye.